So before we get to making the histogram, we're going to run through all the same stuff we've done before. So this data should be different than yours, but you're going to follow along with me. What's going to happen is, first thing you're going to do is put it in order. So at this point I would pause the video and go ahead and put them in order, and then come back and restart it when you're done that. I would work through step by step, unless you're very confident about what's going on with this and you think you can take care of, and you probably can, mean, mode, range, median, and standard deviation. Well, I'll wait on standard deviation maybe, but maybe you can do all those on your own. Then fast forward and get to the part about the histogram. It's up to you. Okay, so we put them in order. Then we're going to find the mean, for example. Remember, that's going to add them all up and divide by how many numbers there are, 20 in this case. So I pause the video and go ahead and do that. Mean is going to come out to be in the neighborhood of 19.95 or close to it, depending on rounding error and so forth. Really, I should take it to just one decimal place past, since there are no decimal places here. So what I really should do is, this is actually rounded 20.0 if I round it to the first decimal place. So next, the mode. Let's look and see. It looks like the 14 shows up the most. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I don't see another number that does that. So the mode is, in this case, there's only one mode, and it's 14. The range is going to be the biggest number, 38, minus the smallest number, 8, and that's going to be, sorry, I was thinking about something else. That's going to be 30. And what I actually want you to do here in these two blocks is take that 30 and divide it by 4. You'll get 7.5. And take that 30 and divide by 5. You'll get 6. We'll come back to this later on. If you've done the median, I should say, you have 18, because the two middle numbers are these two, and you would add them up and divide by 2, or just find the number halfway in between them. Well, halfway in between 17 and 19 is 18. Then begins the process for this. We'll wait. Then goes the process for the standard deviation, where we take this number and subtract. We'll use this for the mean. Actually, no. You know what? I'll end up using this, I believe. We'll subtract the mean from it. So we're going to get. You know what? Let's give it a shot. I think I can just use this. So we're going to do 8 minus 20. Should be negative 12. 12 minus 20 should be negative 8, which would be the same as this, which would be the same as this, because they're all 12. 14 minus 20 is negative 6, so all these are going to be negative 6. 15 minus 20 is negative 5. 17 minus 20 is negative 3. 19 minus 20 is negative 1. (21) minus 20 is positive 1, and then we go from there. We should get those values when we subtract. Of course, as you're doing that, you would probably find it more helpful maybe to take this number, and as soon as you get it, to square it. So you get the negative 12, and you might want to just then immediately square it and get 144. And square 8 and get 64. And so forth. So you might want to go as you go along. Now these are nice, easy numbers, because they're whole numbers. If they're decimals, it'll take you have to use a calculator. And you're fine to use a calculator now, too. I happen to know what most of these are off the top of my head. Uh, 16 squared, now that one's going to get me. Let's see, 15 squared is 225, but that's not going to help me. I need 16 squared. I'm taking a look for my calculator. All right. Got myself a calculator. Gonna do 16 squared. 16 squared. It's gonna be 256. And 18 squared. It's gonna be 324. So we add up. Next step is to add up all of these numbers. And I would pause the video and then do yours. But when I do it, I get 1291. That's here. And then in this cell, I'm going to take the previous one, this number, and divide by 20, the number of numbers. I'd like to point out that really what you're doing is finding the mean or the average of all of these numbers. But we have 1291 divided by 20. My calculator where you can see it. 1291 divided by 20. Oops. I got this. 1291 divided by 20. There we go. 64.55. And then, in this, to get the standard deviation, the last step is to take the square root, this key, not this one, this key. I'm going to square root this number. It's going to be the square root of 64.55. So in this calculator, all I have to do now, since that number is in my display, is just hit the square root key. Bam. 8.03. If I round that to one place, we'll just call it 8.0. So my standard deviation is 8.0. Okay. So I've done all that part, and that's a review of stuff we've done before. To make the histogram, our ultimate goal is to make something. Let's see if I can find my example here. So we're going to make something that looks something like this, where you know if you can read it, but this is the number 8 and this is the number 14. So this is a different data set, but between 8 and 14, there were 4 numbers that were between 8 and 14. There were 7 numbers that were between 14 and 20. And so forth and so on. There were 4 that were between 20 and 26 and so forth. We're going to create one of those. What we need to know for our data is how far apart. Notice every one of these. This is 6, this is 6, this is 6, 6, and 6, and 6 are evenly spaced. So how do we figure that out? Well, that is where this comes in. And once again, I think for this data, I'm going to go ahead and use 6. So when I go to make my histogram, I'm going to find myself a piece of paper. This will work. I'm going to take my paper. I'm going to try to use all of it. So I'll start here. And one axis is going to go here. Try to use a ruler whenever you can for neatness. So this will be one axis, and we'll put the other axis down here. And we'll start with our lowest number, number 8. So we'll start with here at 8. And like I said, I think, based on this, looking at these, I think I'm going to go with 6. Whole number there, it's even, so I'm going to go 6. So I'm going to start with 8 and count up 6 to get to 14. So 8 to 14, that's a change of 6. So I add 6 to 14, I get 20. I add 6 more, I get 26. Notice the bar size is always the same. Add 6 more, I have 32. Then I have 38, and I'm going to need to add 1 more, I think, to get to 44. I think that will cover it. My biggest data is 38, so I think that'll work. You want to go a little bit past your largest data point, usually. Now, I got to decide how big to make, or how big to make each number here. I'm thinking probably on this one, let's go every 3 lines will be 1. I think that'll work. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just make it even. 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know if we'll need more than that or not. We'll find out. Make it even and try to make it use as much of the paper as possible. If you had 2 histograms, maybe you would do one here and one here. That would be okay. But try to use the space that you want to use. Make sure you try to use all of it. Okay. So how many numbers are between 8 and 14? Well, let's take a look. 8's in that group. Check. 12. Yep. 12. 12. That is. What about 14? Here's the rule. If a number is actually one of the boundaries, it goes in the higher one, the next one up. So if this 14, these 14s that we're going to talk about, they actually are going to go in this block, not this one. So, 8, 12, 12, 12, my first block here is going to have those numbers. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers in that group. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's how high I make that bar. It's 4. So how many numbers are between 14 and 20? Well, let's map that out. So that's to here. In fact, let's do all the rest of them. Let's mark them off. 20 to 26 would be here. We wouldn't count the 26 because it would go with the next one up. 26 to 32 would be to here. 32 to 38 would just be the 36. And the 38 is going to go in that last section because it goes up here. So this tells me that I should have 4 in the first one. Got that. Done. I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I should have 7 in this one, 4 in this one, 3 here, and 1 in this one, and 1 in this one. So I have 7 in the second one. So 4, 5, 6, 7 goes up to here. And then in the next range, 20 to 26, I only have 4 numbers in there. And the next one I have, which is 26 to 32, I have just 3 numbers. And in the last 2, I only have 1 number in each of them. Now, you don't have to write these numbers at the top. I'm just doing this to make sure it's clear to you where I got the height of those. And I just pick it up from the different ranges. And so this is a histogram of our data. I would not call it purely normally distributed because the peak should be, if it's normal, right in the middle of our data is where the peak should be. This one's a little skewed. But that doesn't really matter right now. We just have to be able to make the histogram. On the sides, you should write frequency for this label. There we go. And at the bottom, range. And that'll work for now. Alright, so try your set, see how it goes, and I guess that's it.